Hey Irene.
Ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
The story is this man's adventure, in search of a hidden truth, and it would be no adventure if it did not happen to a man fit for adventure. Now, I heard this quote for the first time a couple of weeks ago on Adam Savage's Tested program. He was talking about Raymond Chandler, who wrote this quote. It's from a detective novel. And he was talking about the fact that this detective wouldn't have made a good detective if he wasn't fit for adventure. And that sort of rang a whole stack of bells in our head.
You know, one of the things you don't really think about is, are you ready for homesteading?
Right.
No matter where you're going to homestead,
right,
or where you live.
Right. And we were thinking about the definition of fit for adventure. And we think that that's an integral part of being a homesteader. If you are a person who likes things to be set in stone and never vary, you like a routine, you like things to come out the way you expect them to come out, don't homestead. Because you're going to be really unhappy. When you homestead, you not only need to have plan A and plan B and plan C, but something down around QRSTUV might not be a bad plan.
Well, for those of you who've been watching, you know that we've been wrestling with the problem with our pellet stove heater. I have all the skills to diagnose the problems. I have all the skills to go through and troubleshoot it. The problem is I don't have some essential information from the manufacturer. Right. Now, if I wasn't prepared to deal with that kind of a situation, I'd just throw up my arms and say, I'm done with this, I'm going to go do something different.
Right, well, you'd either have to hire someone to do it, or you'd have to replace the piece of equipment.
Yeah, so we've been dealing with this for a week today. Mm-hmm. It's been exactly 1 week. I'm ready for it to be over. I'm more than ready.
Yeah.
But it's not what we have. So we're going to go ahead and be flexible and deal with what we have. I'm going to fix some other things that need fixing. And we'll get the stove fixed when we get the stove fixed.
Right. So this was one of the things that came across my desk this week. And there were a couple of other things that came across my desk. We're going to call this person from YouTube Scary Prepper.
Oh, Scary Prepper,
yes.
Indeed.
Now, we don't listen to a lot of the heavy-duty prepper channels. We do believe in being prepared, but we don't like people who are radical either all the way right or all the way left. We think that they're both a little too far out for our taste. And this guy made a couple of points, though, that, you know, I actually checked him out because I was curious to what else he had up after this one channel, and that's when I discovered he was Scary Prepper.
Yeah, she decided to go ahead and watch this one because it was one of the recommended videos for us, and I don't know why. I don't know why it got recommended for us.
I don't know. Sometimes I think they just throw out they'll see you cooking or they'll see you storing stuff, and they assume that therefore you're definitely a hardcore prepper.
But she found a really on-the-edge prepper.
He made some interesting points that I thought were worth sharing. The first was about working together. When he and his wife moved out to the sticks and started working, she put her foot down and said, listen, you can't treat me like a piece of crap. You can't swear at me the way you would swear at the boys. You can't treat me like I'm trash because I'm hired help, because I'm not. I'm your partner. And if you want me to work with you, you have to be nice. You have to realize that I may not have all the skills that you have, but I can learn, and I can learn quickly, but you need to teach me.
Yeah, now, Irene and I are both alpha-type people, which is really interesting. And we work together well on some things that we work together well on. And there's other things that we just decide it's better for us to go our separate ways on this particular task. Now, when we work on a task together, we always decide who is going to be the leader.
Right. And that usually has to do with who has the greatest skills in the area or whose plan we're using, because sometimes we'll have plan and plan A2, and maybe we settle on a plan and then that person runs the show. It's not that like the other person can't make a suggestion, but that suggestion has to be a suggestion, not a demand or some other nastiness. So we've learned from experience that we don't do things the same way. but we can accommodate one another's behavior by negotiating effectively and deciding who's going to run it and how things are going to be done. We'll decide ahead of time how we're going to mark out a project and how it's going to accomplish, and then one person leads.
You know, the big thing is you have to decide what matters to you.
Right. And if winning matters all the time, you might as well get divorced and walk away right now, because it's not going to be the way. That's not a marriage. That's a autocracy of some sort.
It's a war zone.
It's a war zone. That's right. So he talked about working together, and that's a very important concept. You need to know how to work together, and you need to be on the same plan. You have to understand where you're going and what your timeline looks like. Even people who hire someone to build a house for them rarely have a house delivered on time. It's usually at least 6 months down the road, and it can be more depending on natural disasters and disasters in terms of supplies and all that other sort of stuff.
Now, we designed this house ourselves. What we have right now is not the complete house that we designed.
No.
But we have what we have because of weather conditions when we were pouring the slab. And the big thing is we designed the frame so it could be built as a timber frame. And that was our intention, was a timber frame house.
Right.
It's what we'd always wanted. It's what we expected to have.
Right.
It wasn't possible here for two basic reasons. Number one, at the time we were building the house, there were really no timber framers in our area. We'd have to go way outside of the state or get a really high-priced group in from further north.
Right. Look, we could have hired somebody from Colorado to come in and build a timber frame. I mean, probably pre-cut it and bring it in and everything. That was way outside of our budget. Way outside of our budget.
And the big problem for us to build it ourselves was the availability of timber that was appropriate for building a timber frame. In order to get wood that was appropriate size and of good quality, I know we had to go at least 240 miles away because we identified somebody that built cabins.
Right.
It wasn't cheap, it was possible, but once we had to here, there was no crew that could assist because we're not capable by ourselves without some equipment that we didn't have at the time.
Right.
To erect a large-scale timber frame.
Our basic problem was we were about 5 to 8 years too early in this area. The vast majority of the buildings in this area when we got here were either mobile homes
or modulars.
Modular prefab sort of things. Very few stick builds. And therefore, the people to do this kind of work were simply not here. Now, 5 years later, 8 years later, well, in our case now, 16 years later, piece of cake.
Easy.
They're all over. One of our neighbors had a log cabin built for her. She had no problem getting somebody to come in, plop a log cabin down for her, do all the side work, everything. But that's now. When we were building, it simply wasn't available.
So we had to agree to be flexible. We both had really wanted a timber frame. I think Irene was more desirous of a timber frame than I was at the time, but I also wanted a timber frame for some different reasons. But we had to be flexible.
And we realized in order to build what we wanted, or something similar to what we wanted, we were going to have to go with stick built because we both had the capabilities of doing that. And lifting 2x4s one at a time, two people could do whatever they need to do.
Or 2x6s that were 10 feet long, or trusses that are 26 feet from tail to tail. That was all within our skill.
Right. You can do that. There's ways to lever things to make it work. Now, Scary Prepper, back to him, he talked about another important point. He called them, I'm going to paraphrase his words, but basically suburban amenities.
Yeah.
So these women, you see, they want things like washers and dryers and hot showers and flush toilets.
And that's a really sexist perspective of life.
No, you know what? I mean, I know plenty of guys who like a hot shower too, including the guy I'm sitting next to.
I like hot showers.
Yeah, right. Oh, and dishwashers. Some of them even want dishwashers.
I like dishwashers.
Yeah. Now, this cracked me up because I'm like, he goes, well, I don't want to blame it all on the women, but I'm going to. And I'm like, wow, I really, your wife, forget it. I wouldn't have even dated you, much less married you. But I'm just like, okay, when you start, like when we first moved out here, we were in a travel trailer, and we alternated between the travel trailer and an old mobile home that was on the property. In the summertime, we would use the travel trailer because we could cool it better. It had better breeze and stuff until we got the mobile home set up a little bit better. And then in the wintertime, we could heat the mobile home better. So we would literally kind of switch back and forth in terms of where we were living. And that was just part of the gig. We understood that. We understood it was a temporary arrangement. And, you know, maybe it took a little longer to get into the house than we hoped. But this was something that we had both in our mental capacity to understand that this was going to be a process. I mean, there's things about the mobile home I miss. We had a really nice bathtub in there, even if it was pink. But
Everything was pink.
Everything was pink in there because it was like older than I am. We understood that, so we were on the same page. But to blame it all on women is first of all not real reasonable. I know a lot of guys who like hot showers and all that kind of stuff too. But you have to look at dirt versus clean dirt. And when I used to work in the field as an archaeologist, we'd say, oh, that's clean dirt. Because what that meant was it was non-toxic dirt. It was just plain old soil that it didn't come from some place where there had been an outhouse or something like that, or where there had been some sort of toxic spill. You could get it on your hands, get it on your clothes, and not have to worry about it. And then there were other places that you worked where there had been some sort of a spill, or it was an old outhouse site or something like that you made sure you really washed up afterwards. When you're working out place like this, we have clean dirt versus dirt. And you don't change your jeans and put on clean jeans every time you go out to work. If you can't live with not being able to have 100% clean from the top of your head to the bottom of your shoes every day, man, you're going to have a laundry bill from you know where, because it's just not going to work for you. There's accommodations you need to be able to make. You need to be able to accept the fact that you're going to put on a pair of dirty jeans because you're going to get right back out in the dirt the next day, and maybe you shake them off or something like that. But they're not pristine. They're not pressed. They're not straight out of the laundry.
Now, we've always had a concept of dirty dirt versus clean dirt.
Yeah.
When we were first married, Irene did some surveying out in the desert while I was busy at work. And for me, work was out working with certain kinds of munitions to test to see the flammability of things that we were testing it against. Which meant that most days when I came home from work, I had been drenched in diesel fuel.
Right. You stripped off at the front door and you jumped in the shower.
When she says stripped off at the front door, it was head to toe, everything, because
Right.
I was really, really soaked in it.
It's nice in case something were to ever go wrong. You always have that as a fallback.
Well, one of the constant themes you hear from the two of us when we're talking is backups, and backups to backups, and backups to backups to backups.
Right.
Because we know things are going to go wrong.
It's just a matter of when.
We know things are going to break. We know that things aren't going to work exactly the way we'd expected, that we'll need to have another way of dealing with the issues.
Right.
Well, we're going to do another episode of this topic here. I think we'll do that tomorrow, because we have a lot more content to talk about.
I covered the things that were most important on my list.
Oh, there's a lot more stuff on my list.
Ah, okay.
So you can tell that we don't necessarily always pre-plan things out all that much.
No, well, and sometimes I ask for a pre-plan and then I get a modification in the middle.
This might be a modification. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, because we're going to be doing a lot more stuff. And oh, by the way, ring the bell for notifications. For those of you who don't know what that is, there's going to be a bell down below the video that if you go click on that bell, it will make you get alerts whenever we post something new.
You do have to be a member of YouTube in order to be able to use the notification system. And you have to be a member of YouTube in order to subscribe.
So subscribe.
So subscribe. It's not that big a deal.
I think it's time to say goodbye.
It is. So until next time, bye.
Bye.